Hello everyone. We are the Group 12 and today we will report Unit 13 with the following members, me, Iken, and Ezra from STEM 11A St. Thaddeus. So let's start. Lesson 1 is about the dimensions of visual information and media that will be reported by me. In creating visual information and media, visual media refers to all possible media technologies to reach a large number of audience. For example, the videos, photography, infographics, comic strips, memes, screenshots, text, etc. that you may see at the media. And visual information is the source of data or information represented visually. It is also refers to the artistic or creative interpretation or representation of a concept, idea, or emotion using the different types of media. Media can be classified into four types. Sa print media, which include newspaper and magazine. Broadcast media, which include TV and radio. And out of home media, and the internet. For you to better understand the concepts regarding visual information, you have you have to first know the purpose. Visual creators establish their reasons for making visuals for them to deliver the information without any doubt. Purposes of visual information. First is gain attention because there are many people that may see it on the media. And the second one is create meaning to give information. And the last one is facilitate attention to explanation. Visual information is created by painter, graphic artist or designer, photographer, and sculptor. Painter. It is a person who produces a work of art using lines, shapes, and colors. Paint is used as medium. Painters are considered as artists because their field of work is artistic in nature. For example, the famous artists in the world like Vincent van Gogh, Pablo Picasso, Leonardo da Vinci, and etc. Next is the graphic artist or designer. These visual artists sets illustrations, charts, images, and tables of drawings. They also use electronic media for art artworks and designs. Professional graphic artists may also create and lay out brochures, pamphlets, and other advertising material. By the use of technology, art can now be used in a computer, and those are the graphic artists or design. Number three is the photographer. The primary job of photographers is to capture images using a camera. They can be classified as amateur or professional. They use teams to take the best shot of their subject. Photographers are uh, they are the professional at using camera. They take pictures that you may see in a media like the newspaper, magazine, or social media. Number four is the sculptor. A sculptor creates a masterpiece using clay, wood, marble, or even ice. They are the talented people that create art on a clay, wood, or even ice. Dimensions of visual information. Visual information utilizes various appeals and mediums to different spectators. The artists of these visuals decide on how the viewer sees or interprets the conveyed message. There are several types of visual media, and it includes painting, photo or image, sculpture, cartoon or comic strip, graph and chart, and billboard and posters. Painting. It is the creation of aesthetic qualities in a two-dimensional visual language to express ideas and emotions. It uses flat mediums such as canvas board and painting materials. Examples of paintings are an example of painting is portrait. In portrait, it uses human as subject of a work of art. For example, The Mona Lisa by Leonardo da Vinci. Another example of a painting is landscape. It depicts a natural scenario. Painters use nature as theme for landscape. As you can see in the picture, it is a landscape painting of a forest. Another example of painting is still life. It is the depiction of inanimate objects with qualities such as form, color, texture, and composition. Um, Still life painting are created by uh, with fruits or food like that. And for the last example of a painting is icon. It refers to paintings which proliferated during the Byzantine Empire. The Byzantine Empire existed from approximately 395 Common Era. The icon it uses religious and titles as its subjects. As you can see on the picture, it is a painting of Mother of God by Robert Sachsenberg. Number two is photo or image. This is a visual representation taken using a camera. Photo or image are captured by the photographers. It has a story which lets people feel emotions by mere perception. For example, uh, when you take a picture of a dog that is sad and hungry, of course you will feel sad too because as soon as you see the picture, it is sad like that. It is also used to record past events, like in the history, like that. In World War II, yun. And photo or image also comes in many types, which are personal photo, family photo, photojournalism, and etc. The number three is sculpture. It is a three-dimensional work of art which uses metal, clay, wood, or ice as medium. Um, the difference between painting and sculpture: painting is a two-dimensional work, while sculpture is a three-dimensional work. And it depicts a replica of a subject, human, nature, or inanimate object. For example, the Statue of Liberty that created by Frederick Augusto Bartholdi in USA, New York. Number four is cartoon or comic strip. It is a sequential arrangement which shows illustrations or drawing. It's usually seen in newspapers or official comic books. For example, the Marvel, like that. Yeah. Comic strip tells a story by using picture by picture. The difference between photo or image, and cartoon or comic strip are cartoon or comic strip shows both the story and the picture. Number five is graph and chart. A graph is a diagrammatic representation of a given set of data. It shows variables or numerical figures indicating a trend or phenomenon. A chart is a graphical illustration of data which uses symbols such as bars, lines, pictures, or numbers. It can be a table, graph, or a diagram. Graph and chart are used in like statistic when there's a computation like that. And for the number six, it is the billboards and posters. A billboard refers to a large outdoor board which contain text information and images with designs used as a form of an advertisement. A poster is a smaller version of a billboard. Uh, when you go outside, like on a highway, there will be a uh, poster or a billboard. The difference between them is billboard is big and large, representation of a picture, while poster is small. And that's all for the lesson 1. The lesson 2 will be reported by Iken.
So, good afternoon. Now let's talk about lesson 2, elements of design of visual information. So, more of pure inspiration or even the best idea is required to create a fantastic visual design. It's all about completely grasping a subject's foundations. Any designer who intends to start a project should be aware of at least a few essential aspects. Now, I will discuss the basic elements of visual design, which will result in a neat composition. Number 1 is line. This element shows direction, motion, and orientation. This is also used to divide space. Lines can be straight, diagonal, curved, crooked, dotted, broken, vertical, or horizontal. So, line is the most basic visual design element. In graphic design, a line is defined as a connection between two strokes. Lines are the building blocks of other visual design elements like shapes. They can also stand on their own to create emphasis or divide elements. So sa visual design, ang line ay ang pinakapangunahing elemento ng design. Ang mga line ay maaaring mahaba o maikli, tuwid o hubog. Maaari rin silang pahalang, patayo o diagonal. Lines are solid, putol-putol, makapal, manipis o may variable na lapad. Ang dulo ng isang line ay maaaring gulanit, mapurol o kurbado. Number 2 is shape. This element is the result when lines meet. In the field of design, shapes can either be geometric, square, triangle, or organic like snowflakes, turtle shell, sunflower. So, a shape is a two-dimensional area that is distinguished from the space next to or around it by a specified or implied border, or by distinctions in value, color, or texture. Shapes are recognized shapes and forms that are typically made up of other design elements. In other words, shapes is what makes up the foundation of any composition. A layout can be simple, made of one or few shapes, or complex, made by groups of many individual shapes. So number 3 is space. This is the distance between two subjects. It can either have two, length and width, or three dimensions. Depth and volume are both present in all objects illustrated in a three-dimensional space. So when we see space in design, it allows us to dream and roam freely. When jobs are made, it provides a visual hierarchy for the elements to guarantee that viewers can identify and digest the information offered more simply. So space creates the visual essence and dynamic of a composition. Number 4 is color. It is used to emphasize basically emotions elicited by each color. It can be determined according to hue, color name, value, brightness, or intensity, purity of hue. So a color scheme is one of the first aspects that communicates the message behind the design. In fact, one of the most significant parts is the color scheme. This is because when we applied appropriately, color may reflect the niche as well as the overall marketing strategy of the company. So color plays a vital role in design and everyday life. It can draw your eyes to an image. Sometimes it can trigger an emotional response. It can even communicate something important without using words at all. And number 5 is value. It is the degree of brightness of a design. It varies from light to dark. It is also the contrast from white to black and all the stones between them. In design, the lightness or darkness of a color is described by its value. Color values are frequently represented using a gradient, which shows a sequence of changing on a single hue, sorted from lightest to darkest. Number 6 is texture. It refers to the way things feel or how the eye perceives as if they are touched. Texture can either be tactile or implied. Tactile texture is when one actually feels the surface of an object and he or she can easily determine what it is made of, like feather, cotton, fur, etc. On the other hand, implied texture is the way the eye perceives how the object feels. Thus, it might look smooth or rough. One can tell it just by looking at it, but can't actually touch it. So the senses of feeling, touching, and actualization are all referred to as texture. The presence of various visual elements such as patterns, colors, pictures, content, and more is enhanced by the presence of texture in graphic design. So texture is the way a surface feels or is perceived to feel. It is used to create a visual tone and can influence the look and feel of a piece of graphic design work. It is used to attract or repel interest to an element depending on the pleasantness of the texture. Next is 7 is form. It is the three-dimensional version of shapes. One can measure its volume, depth, width, length, and height. Forms can also be created by joining two or more shapes. It can be enhanced by changing its texture and color. So the way an artist arranges elements within a composition is referred to as form. Any three-dimensional object can also be described as it, from top to bottom or its height, and side to side or its width, and back to front or its length. The form can be measured its depth. Okay, so now let's go to visual design principles. So each design has to follow certain guidelines to meet the standards of a well-done visual presentation. Number one, margin consistency, colors, typeface, type style, and colors need to be observed accurately, most especially when presenting the slides and documents which exceeds one page. So margin, typeface, type style, and color consistency are all important, especially in multi-presentations and papers. Number two is center of interest, also known as the attention getter. This can be done by putting more colors, contrasting values, and arranging the correct placement in the format. So in a design, it's the first thing that draws the eye of comparison to other items or pieces in a composition. This area is more significant. This can be accomplished through the use of contrast in values, the addition of more colors, and the format's positioning. Next is number three is balance. Visual equality in the elements of design. Balance can either be symmetrical or evenly balanced, or asymmetrical or unevenly balanced. The elements of visual design can be used in creating balance in a composition. So balance is the visual weight of objects, colors, texture, and space distributed throughout the screen. These elements should be balanced if the design is a scale to make it feel stable. So in a balanced design, all treatment groups receive the same number of observations. Sa an imbalanced design naman has an equal number of observations in some treatment groups. So next is harmony. Harmony unites ideas in a compositions. For example, you use wavy lines and organic shapes. You would remain using those types of lines and not just one geometric shape. So the sensation of cohesion between the elements of a composition is known as harmony. The elements need not be identical or wholly dissimilar, but should be connected in some way. Color palettes or textures that are similar might help to bring disparate elements together. So number five, contrast. Few changes in value creating a visual dissonance in a composition. Contrast displays the disparity between shapes and use as a background to bring objects forward in a design. An area of emphasis can also be created using contrast. So the arrangement of opposing elements and effects is referred to as contrast. Light and dark hues, smooth and rough textures, and huge and small shapes are only a few examples. In an artwork, contrast can be employed to add variety, aesthetic intrigue, and drama. Now let's move on to number 6. Number 6 is directional movement. Directional movement is flow of the composition. It can suggest motion in a design as you move from one object to another in terms of placement and position. Value pattern can be associated with directional movement. The placement of dark and light areas can move your attention through the format. So, it's a, it's a visual flow that runs through the piece. It might be a design suggestions of mobility as you travel from object to object through arrangement and location. A value pattern can be used to create directional movement. So direction is an element of design that establishes the general mood and atmosphere. It creates the illusion that there is movement within the design. Number 7 is rhythm. Rhythm is a movement which shows regular repetition of some elements. Compared to a dance, it will it will let objects flows that will seem to be like the rhythm of music. So the use of repeated design elements like as patterns and colors to draw the viewer's eye throughout an image or document is known as rhythm. Although the designer may utilize rhythm to communicate movement, rhythm will not always be used in this manner. On the other hand, movement is used to signify on the other hand, movement is used to signify action. The last one is perspective. Objects arranged into dimensional space as if they appear in real life create perspective. Perspective is a perception of the relationship between different objects seen in space. So the process of creating the illusion of depth in your photograph is called perspective. Perspective gives the impression that your image is moving away from you, as in a landscape or cityscape. And that's all for my report. Thank you.
Hello everyone, I'm Ezra, and we'll talk about the reliability of visual information and media. So, have you ever experienced being fooled by advertisements? Like the advertisement was perfectly done and delivered, which attracts many people, including you. But when you saw it personally, it was completely different. Reliability. In the media world, any visual material must possess reliability. The supporting sources must be credible and should have documentation to show that it is professional, well researched, recent, and peer reviewed. Both reliability and validity are important factors in assessing the truthfulness of visual content. So, to be media and information literate individuals, we need to carefully observe media images or representations and analyze both the visual representation and the context which surrounds the image and which we sometimes do not notice. So reliability and validity are two vital parts on every visual representation. So ano nga ba yung dalawa? Reliability is about consistency, while validity is about accuracy. Reliability criteria. It focuses on the extent to which the visual information can be trusted. It relies on how the visual content proves the truth of what it promotes over time in different circumstances. So reliability is when a measure or test yields the same results no matter how it repeats. Reliability criteria helps to know if the visual information can be trusted or not. These are the following questions that would give a hint on the reliability of the visual content. First is, are the sources truthworthy? So for you to know if the source is truthworthy, You need to identify the credibility of the person who made the visual information and the accuracy of what the visual content implies through browsing for other sources relevant to it. Second one is, does the printed or web-based information come from a well-established institution, organization, or company? So this question asks for credibility of the source of the visual information. Trust is one factor which keeps the viewer loyal and believe in whatever the company promotes. Third is, who sponsors the production of visual information. So it is also vital to know who is behind the advertisement. Through this, we will be aware of the possible motives and purpose behind the dissemination of visual information. That's all for lesson 3, and now let's move on to lesson 4, production and evaluation of a creative visual based presentation. An infographic is a visual representation of information, data, or ideas through images. Infographics are an artistic representation of data using elements such as graphs, pictures, timeline, diagrams, and many more. They are intended to present information quickly and clearly. Mike Glass, the author of the book The Power of Infographics, Using Picture to Communicate and Connect with Your Audiences, tackled infographics and its history. It aids readers to be knowledgeable about visualization, design elements and principles, and several uses of visual storytelling. Infographics can help in understanding complex information through visual representation. So these are well-known softwares which can be used for visual presentations. First is Adobe Photoshop. It is used for almost any type of image editing. So Adobe Photoshop is a photo editing application used by many professional designers and photographers. Not only image editing, but also touching up photos, creating high-quality graphics are only some of the features of using this software application. Second one is Prezi, an online presentation software founded by Peter Arvai, Peter Halaxy, and Adam Somlai Fisher in 2009. So Prezi gives you the freedom to style your work and to show relationships between the main topic and the details. In this way, you make your message more likely to recall and motivate, whether it's your classroom lecture or a business report. So these are things to consider when evaluating visual information. First is color combination. Visual information is an art and media. The choice of color combos count depending on the theme and the subject. Also, a color represents a certain meaning or a specific emotion. For example, is blue for peace and red for rage. A person notices the way how colors are mixed to present a well-done visual presentation. The colors used and color complements. It attracts people especially if the theme is connected to the subject. Second is creativity level. Artistic sense and creativity also matter in evaluating visuals. The standard is that designs and illustrations should be appropriate and related to the content. A poster or billboard will not catch attention if it is ordinary looking. On the contrary, creative visuals will spark interest. However, the creativity level should match the material for it not to look overly designed, which in turn might irritate eyes or turn away audiences. Third is theme. Visual media sends messages to the audience even without the presence of texts. Images used can persuade viewers to believe what they see. Most infographics don't have too much text. The context relies on the images attached, which is also easy to understand by the viewers. Fourth is subject. It represents the content of the visual presentation. So, the choice of subject is vital because it will reflect the message to be perceived and determine the interpretations and reactions of the audience. Choosing a subject is vital since the visual representation evolves around it. That's all. Thank you for watching, and I hope you learned a lot from our group. Have a good day.